Hi everyone, it's Gary Nicholson here for the Mountain Weather Information Service. This is your planning outlook video updated on Tuesday the 19th of December. Now, a fairly benign spell of weather taking us through to Christmas. The pressure is quite high. We've got relatively mild temperatures in, although the next couple of days are a little bit cooler across Scotland. An extensive low cloud will plague many of the mountains with the best breaks towards the east. As we go through the Christmas period, though, things are becoming more unsettled as low pressure comes in off the Atlantic. There's the risk of some gales at times, and freezing levels will just tend to drop, which brings a greater scope for some snowfall and accumulations across mountains in Scotland particularly. Let's just start by having a look at the Jetstream charts, and these are the wind speeds around 30,000 feet in the atmosphere. And in the short term, it's running more or less to the north of the British Isles. We've got high pressure focused to the south and southwest of us, bringing in mild air masses from the mid-Atlantic. The jet stream coming out of North America, though, is a strengthening feature as we go towards Christmas in response to temperature contrasts over the North American continent. Some very cold air is being drawn southwards out of Arctic Canada. That acts to fire up the jet stream that comes across the North Atlantic, the temperature contrast there just enhancing those wind speeds. And what that tends to do then is throw storm systems in our direction. And as we run through Christmas and just beyond, the jet is moving further towards the south of us and bringing those weather systems into our shores. What it does as well is put us into a cooler or colder air mass on the northern side of the jet. So that shift in jet stream position is important to get colder air back into the picture. And particularly Scotland will often go into temperatures on the mountains below freezing as we head between Christmas and New Year, whilst I think freeze and thaw cycles will develop across the hills of England and Wales. But just look at the strength of that jet stream. That's around the 28th of December, coming screaming across the Atlantic, so expect some periods of upland gales, maybe even stormy conditions at some point through Christmas to New Year. Let's have a look at temperatures, and this is the chart which shows you temperatures at around 4,500 to 5,000 feet in the atmosphere, thereabouts. It's the 850 millibar chart that we use commonly in forecasting. Over the next day or so, we've got relatively mild air in, although Wednesday, Thursday, the higher Scottish summits will actually be near or just below freezing point as we're to the north of a frontal zone, which is across northern England. We'll show you those charts in a moment. But as we go through towards the weekend, we find that milder southwesterlies do come back in, so freezing levels will be above the summits through into this weekend. They'll stay that way more or less through Saturday and Sunday, although there may be a bit of a drop as we go through Sunday as a front tries to edge back southwards again. As we go through into Christmas Day, I think that front will continue its journey southeastward, so colder air will get in towards the mountains, and the best chance for a white Christmas really is across the mountains of Scotland. I think most places elsewhere is a distinctly green one. Into next week then, we just run through the temperatures over a few days, and we see that we stay near or below freezing across higher Scottish mountains. We're hovering closer to zero across England and Wales. Some uncertainty of detail, but it's just the idea that we go into generally cooler air. Not quite the depths of cold we saw earlier in the month, but we're staying on the colder side, with most higher terrain remaining below freezing, particularly in Scotland. So I'll run through the synoptic charts to see where things are going over the next few days, and Wednesday has got a weak frontal zone extending through high pressure, so not a great deal on it, but a zone of low cloud and murk and drizzly rain, mostly focused on Western Hills Wales and northwest England, but not amounting to a great deal. Across Scotland, largely dry, lowest cloud away toward the west, highest cloud breaks further east, and winds are fairly light. Pressure remains high into Thursday, still got that frontal zone across England and Wales, bit of uncertainty just how far north or south this will have progressed to by this stage, and that's important just in terms of who gets the dampest of conditions, whether it's focused on Wales or more into the Lake District. It looks as though Scotland is into a dry story with fairly light winds, although just watch the wind speeds across higher northern summits with that westerly flow that bit stronger, and lowest cloud again is going to be on western coastal mountains. High pressure is still around then into Friday, quite a slack pressure regime, barely an isobar across the British Isles, so we've got very light winds overall. Some areas of low-level mist, some banks of low cloud maybe on some western mountains. Essentially a dry story, looks as though it's brightest towards the north and east. Stronger winds through Saturday, could be widespread upland gales, particularly focused on Scotland, but a windy day for most of the hills and mountains. Fronts just trailing in, producing a lot of low cloud and rain and drizzle across western Scotland. Dry with brighter skies maybe just towards the east of the Highlands. Low cloud coming into western hills in England and Wales too. And again, uncertainty on just the progress north and south of these fronts. It looks as though some more persistent rain is focused on west and southwest Scotland through Sunday, with, again, drizzle and low cloud on western hills all the way up from Wales to western Scotland. The north and northeast of the Highlands, once again, probably the brightest with the highest cloud breaks. Strongest winds focused a bit more to the south of that front, so the gale force upland winds a bit more towards the Pennines and Wales. It may be that winds are slightly lighter across Scotland through Sunday compared to Saturday. Still quite a long way to go before we know exactly what Christmas Day's chart will look like, but something like this, with a front trying to extend southeastwards, the risk of gales for a time as south-southwesterlies, some heavy rain on that front may be there for a few hours, tend to snow on its back edge into parts of Scotland, and showers that follow could be increasing the snow to lower levels in the West Highlands if we just see that colder air coming in soon enough. And just to finish with this chart, it's the 7-day pressure anomaly that takes us from Boxing Day until New Year's Day. And it shows the idea that pressure will be lower than average around the British Isles, that the bluer colours are showing that. The redder and browner colours are where pressure is likely to be higher than average. And essentially it's that jet stream flow that we were talking about at the beginning coming towards us, so unsettled with wind and rain, may well be often snow across the Scottish mountains with those freezing levels likely to stay down. Day-to-day detail is going to be tricky, but I think that idea of being rather unsettled throughout is the main message. The blocking, the high pressure that's trying to get going over polar regions is of interest going further ahead, because if that can start to disrupt the jet stream, we might find that colder weather can come back to us as we go deeper into the winter. So as always, stay right up to date with the very latest information for the next 3 days in all the written files updated every single day here on the website. Stay safe on the mountains. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.